What's up, everybody? Welcome to Today in Space. Our intro song means we're still on lockdown, which is not a surprise to anybody. Hope you're doing well. My hair is obviously Corona hair right now. I've tamed it as well as I can to be presentable today. But I'm wearing a nice new shirt. I'm feeling good. I'm here to spread love and spread science like we do here on Today in Space. I'm your science communicator, Alex Girofanos. And today I'm going to give you a quick update, just, things I've been looking at online, things that are space-related that have come across my scroll on my smartphone and my feed. And then we're going to talk about something a little bit later, something we've talked about before. I'm going to expand on a thought we've had on a previous podcast. But to start, for space, it's been a busy week, right? One of the first things, obviously we've got the Perseverance rover. That was our last episode. That was our last episode where we broke down the Perseverance mission, talked about the Ingenuity helicopter that's going to be flying over there, and the future possibilities that could happen if everything goes smoothly. And of course, the insane science that the Perseverance rover is going to do itself, which still, the thing blowing my mind is the one instrument that's going to convert, I think it's MOXIE, is going to convert carbon dioxide into oxygen in the Martian atmosphere, which is mind-blowing to me. That's one of the things I'm most excited for, other than, of course, the alien helicopter demonstration. But one of the cool things that popped on my feed, this is by Adam Stelzner on Instagram, ASTELTZNER. He's an explorer, chief engineer for NASA Perseverance, and as it says on his bio, maker of spacecraft, trucks, and other stuff. It's a really cool post that he put up. It's this plaque that they're putting on the Perseverance rover, and I'll just read what he said here. Sometimes engineers get to do a little art. This plaque is now mounted on the side of the Mars Perseverance rover. It is our project's effort to say thanks to those in the medical/first responder community. It looks like, against all odds, we will be launching from the Kennedy Space Center July 30th, which is the first opportunity in their window from July 30th to August 15th, where they're able to launch to Mars in time. And it's really, really cool. It's got, obviously, the medical symbol with Earth up top and the Mars transfer orbit that Perseverance will be doing as it's flying out of Florida on the map, which is pretty cool. I think this is great. This is a nice nod to what's going on in today's world. Craziness, everything is crazy, everyone is crazy, but we're here to talk some space, right? And within days after that, like let's just say the Mars Perseverance rover goes off on July 30th without a hitch. Astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley are scheduled to come home for Demo 2 on August 2nd. So that's when they'll be departing the International Space Station, and then they'll be splash landing back home to be recovered on the ocean to come home after their mission that they've been there. After Demo 2 was an insane demonstration of what the capabilities we have today can do. SpaceX did a great job. This is the culmination of this mission and the success that they've had. And we just wish everyone luck with the operations, getting that to work, and everybody to come home safely. So that's very, very cool. The anasis-ii launch, which is a military satellite that was put up there for South Korea. That was launched by SpaceX, and they successfully landed that booster, which is its second time doing that. And the first time, of course, sending the first American astronauts from American soil on an American spacecraft, the Falcon 9, and the Dragon spacecraft, SpaceX. Astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley flew on this same booster. Not only that, this was the first launch that SpaceX actually caught both of those fairings, which I saw a rough number online, essentially that each fairing is $3 million. So each one of those fairings, whether it's each, which is a total $6 million, or the combination is $3 million, nonetheless, the fact that those were caught on those catcher's mitt, giant net boats that they have to meet up. They finally caught both, which means now the margin of how reusability has been expanded, right? Of how rockets can be reused, because almost everything with the rocket was dumped into the ocean and not usable once again. The first stage has been the major piece that SpaceX has been doing successfully. The fairings are a very expensive piece of traveling to space. By doing this, that money now not only reduces the cost per launch for SpaceX, but it also gives them the ability to have their customers pay less if they decide to use a reused space vehicle, a launch vehicle. So that's a pretty amazing, not only turnaround for SpaceX to be doing this, this many launches so many times in a row, which is integral to getting the cost of launching it to space down. It's not something I kind of got driven home this week after my brief moments on Twitter, because Twitter is a dumpster fire of hate right now. So I'm not spending much time on there. But one thing that I did really drive home was the equation for reusability is not just the ability to recover these things, because that's great if you can recover them, but it's really how often can you launch these reused vehicles, because, the price of launching one that's brand new is different than the launch of it afterwards. So if you can have a situation where SpaceX is launching 4 times a month, getting to the point where they start launching multiple times per week and kind of interchanging the parts that have gone through the process of getting checked to make sure they're able to refly, that is what needs to be done. And they're already at a crazy pace of launching, and we're already seeing all these different first-stage boosters that are getting flight heritage and sending stuff up. Now the fairings come into game here, and it's a good thing to see for the future. The American space industry, especially the launch industry, seemed kind of stagnant for a while. It's nothing new for folks that have been listening to the podcast for a while. We've been talking about that for a while. But we're finally at this point where the American space industry is really starting to do some amazing things. And obviously, we also have launch providers like the United Launch Alliance that are launching things like the Perseverance rover and making those things possible. It's very cool to see the American space industry where it is today, given all the challenges that it's seen in the last 20 years or so, since the space shuttle was retired. China it just launched a very, very ambitious and far-reaching mission that allows them to test multiple technologies at the same time and put their first rover on the surface of Mars. This rover that will be sending, the U.S. will be sending, Perseverance, is the 6th rover on the planet, and that's also including some of the early Soviet Union rovers. So we had Sojourner, we had Spirit and Opportunity, and Curiosity, which is still on the red planet. Perseverance is going to make our 5th for the U.S. This Tianwen-1 is the mission that's going to have not only China's first rover, but it's an orbiter, lander, rover concept. So essentially, there's an orbiter that will be obviously orbiting around the planet. It will be dropping the lander, which has the rover inside, and once the lander makes it to the surface, it will then deploy the rover, and then the mission is afoot. They're also trying to look for life, and they're going to other places on Mars where we've seen good things ourselves. And China, this is good for China in many, many ways. Mars is not a very easy place. Most countries that have gone, which is the USSR and the US, did not have a very good, easy time in the beginning. China has the luxury of kind of learning from all the space programs before them, which is an advantage, and they should take advantage of that. So we wish them luck on making this happen. They launched July 23rd, and that should take 7 months to get to Mars. So 2021 is going to be busy with Mars activity. It's going to be very, very cool to see. Again, February, we'll be seeing, as long as everything goes well with Perseverance's launch, we should be seeing Perseverance get to Mars by then. The other thing that we did this week was last Saturday, we had our live stream on Facebook, on our Facebook page, Today in Space Podcast, where we did just a live design session for the Galileo rocket. Really, it was my first try at doing that. It was a way to interact with you guys and to hang out and talk about this rocket that we're 3D printing this summer. This is the sample rocket that we bought so that I could learn a little bit, because I'm new to this too, you know. This is a learning experience as much for me as it is for anyone that wants to get involved. You know, I went to school for aerospace engineering, but I didn't really launch model rockets growing up, and these are the fun things that you think you would do when you go to school. You know, unless you're actually building rocket technology, there's not that many jobs out there that you can do that. For everybody else, unless you're hands-on and you're able to design and manufacture on your own, it's kind of out of reach for you. And I've reached this strange point in my life where 3D printing and space has kind of collided to give me this opportunity where we have AG 3D Printing, which is our 3D printing lab where we make a bunch of products. We have our Etsy page, ag3dprinting.etsy.com, where you can buy any of the stuff that we have there, reach out to us, support the podcast. Lots of support during COVID times to keep this podcast up and running and everything. I really thank you, everybody, for following along. Anyone that's done that, at a minimum, just for hanging out with us on this podcast, subscribing, and telling your friends. I can see the stats. I know you guys are doing that, so I really do appreciate it. And all your support, that's what keeps us going. And that's why we have our Galileo rocket. That's named Things for You. So this is not a Galileo rocket. This is our Alpha 3 from Estes. And what we did is we reverse engineered this. Big shout out to Jake. He was with us for the design session. And it completely, and his feedback was super useful, because I was able to look at this and really see a problem, and this is something he brought up, is how a rocket engine actually gets attached here, right? So we can reverse engineer this, take a pair of calipers, design this rocket from scratch, you know, design the same thing, and we could launch it, and that would be okay. But what I quickly realized as we were doing this was I was going about this completely wrong, and that's part of doing something for the first time. Sometimes you're just doing something just to get started, to figure out what you really should be doing. And what I realized, and what Jake helped me realized, was that really we just need an engine system. We need one way to mount various different engines that have different thrusts that we could launch higher and add payloads on top, and actually have missions where we have goals, or, you know, one of the ones that's out there for missions. There's actual rocket competitions out there, especially high school ones. And there's even other ones, hobbyist ones, where you have a mission statement. One that's used is launching eggs into orbit into a certain altitude and returning them safely without them cracking. That is an established mission of, you know, making sure that the payload gets there safely and returns. And there's a lot of exciting stuff we could do with this. But we need to get launching first. So I think what Galileo will become is not only just the rocket, but it's not the entire rocket, but it's the engine mount as well. So what we're going to be doing another session this weekend. It's going to be on this Sunday, which if I pull up a date here, I can actually tell you, because I have no idea what day it is unless I look at my phone. Honestly, it could be any day. That's Corona. So the 26th. So the 26th of July, we're going to go live on our Facebook page, Today in Space Podcast, if you want to be a part of the Galileo rocket design for that engine and see how we're going to make that, and give us any kind of advice or thoughts or opinions or things you think we could do to improve it. That's what that's there for. We're here to do this together. So feel free to join us for that. And really, the important thing about that is about having an open mindset. You know, if I had gone into that session and this had been about me, and it could have been my ego behind this, I could have seen feedback, and this is not just of my situation, but I think this is a big problem in the world right now, of mindset and where you're at, and how that mindset is what drives how you react to the world in front of you, right? If I was not in a good mindset, and an open mindset, and saying that I know that I don't know things. This is brand new to me, so I'm not offended if someone tells me that I'm doing something wrong, or that I'm going in the wrong direction. I'm more open to that feedback now at 30. That would not have been the case when I was 22, but that's progress, that's evolving. And that mindset is really a culmination of just the journey I've had in the last 5 years. We've talked about this before on the podcast, and my journey with this podcast started when I quit a pack-a-day habit of smoking cigarettes that I had done for about 5 years. And obviously unhealthy. My body was really breaking down, and the scientific mindset is what got me on the first steps of wanting to get away from that addiction. I mean, I was at a point, I've said this before, I'm sorry if you've heard it before, but it's relevant. I was so addicted to the action of smoking cigarettes and so unable with who I was at the time to make a change that I was writing in a notebook, basically talking to myself, saying like, this is not good, I need to stop this. Sure, maybe therapy could have been helpful, but I made it through it. I was able to take scientific principles and just the scientific method of, okay, I am not going to just try to quit once. If try to quit the first time, what was it that really made me not possible? What behaviors were in place that are preventing me from taking this next step for my own health, for just being a better version of myself? That's what this podcast has been, such an amazing journey, and it's feedback from listeners like you, and you guys telling me what you're really interested in, and obviously replying and downloading the episodes. Like, all of those things are what helped me figure out what is entertaining, what's interesting to you. And at the start of this journey, I was not open to that. And this idea of the scientific method has not only helped me with that, it's helped me completely change. 5 years ago, I was a kid at home who still didn't have his engineering degree, was in school for over the 4 years, and very bitter about that. And I had to change the way that I looked at things. And I didn't reinvent the wheel. I didn't just create something completely new from scratch. It's my idea. No, I just took the things that I knew. I'd spent many hours, and I have a passion for science. So it's not unbelievable that I use science as kind of my construct for getting out of that. But it also became the way that I looked at the world, and it's what drives this podcast. It's always having that lens of that scientific mindset. And so I think I know it's helped me a lot, and if it can help just one person, if it can be useful to somebody, we should talk about it. And I think it's very useful in today's world. And this is a scientist's approach to breaking down fact from bullshit info in our daily lives. There's a lot going on in our lives. The fact that I have made it here in your earphones and your speakers on your screen right now means that I had to beat out someone else's spot on the internet to get to you, right? There's kind of a war of attention, but I'm glad that I won. It's a pleasure to be here, honestly. And this war on information and attention makes it very difficult, even though we have all of human knowledge at our fingertips, right? All of it right here on this smartphone or computer, if you have access to the internet, right? But you also get everyone's opinion and take on that information. And things over the years have been escalating like crazy. It's not like before COVID, the world was perfect. There was this oversaturation of information, and the divide between what's actual fact and what's really just information that is being taken in by us every single day. Even though COVID didn't start it, it definitely accelerated it to an unbelievable level that now there's COVID, there's civil unrest, and it's really made kind of fools of all of us. And we're all taking in so much bullshit information on top of the stuff that really matters. And it's very difficult to cut through that. It's filling our brains with shit, and there is a science-based approach to filtering out that bullshit and actually having a process to finding facts wherever they might be, right? And there's, again, we talked about this before, but there's this idea that we've built on the podcast before. And it's just this fundamental way that scientific ideas go from being a hypothesis to a theory to eventually a scientific law. And we call it the scientific ladder of ideas. Even though it's representative of kind of how scientific ideas become higher, more representative of actual reality, which has to go through the gauntlet of the peer review method, peer review process that allows basically anyone to say, hey, I don't think your idea works. I'm going to run the same experiment and show that the results aren't the same. And if you do go do that, you do the same experiment, and you still get the same results as that person, then everyone goes, well, damn, that must be real. So it's a very powerful thing, and it takes a long time for these things to become what I guess you could call fact, although in science, saying that something is a solid, definite fact is, in fact, not scientific, because there's a reason why science books are being rewritten. There's a reason why, for instance, Einstein's first theory of special relativity didn't account for everything, so it expanded into the theory of general relativity, which then became really what changed the way we look at space and time and all of that. And the reason it got to that point was because of this scientific ladder of ideas, this process of seeing how something gets to be good. Now, the most important thing is, how do you tell if something you just saw is fact or just information? And I think the way that we get our information today is definitely problematic. The way that information gets to us is based on how clickable it is, how popular it might be. The way things are phrased in ways that make us want to click that, and they change the meaning of something because that means you're going to click on it and they have your attention. So when this phrasing gets changed, then the actual information gets changed. And then by the time it actually reaches you, by the time you scroll by it on your phone and you see that headline and it makes you feel something, you might not even be getting the right information. And one thing that I've trained myself, and this is taking a hard look at how I look at the world and saying, you know what, this is not good for me. I think we can all agree that the anxiety that bad news gives us, and I don't mean news that is sad and stuff like that. That is news, but I don't think it's too far for me to say that the way that that news is given to us and information is given to us is crap, and it's making us all think crappy, right? It's bad fuel for us. So what do you do? How do you go against what this system is in place of behaviors first on the part of the people that are giving this information to us, right? And that's not just news. That's people who are influencers, people that post online. That's you and I. That's us and what we decide to post online. And there are times when I just won't post online, and that's a detriment to getting in front of more people. But I'm also really trying to make sure that what we put out on the internet is different. And I'm not going to go off of some crazy soapbox and say we're doing this for a reason, but it definitely is part of the thought process here. And what we try and do here is to bring up the conversation, to get us talking about it. It's a weird conversation because obviously I'm talking almost the entire time, but it's a conversation. If I say something here on this podcast, I'm most likely going to have some kind of a link to it in the description for you to follow. Now, not many people will do that in the first place. I think that's unique. I think it's something we should all start doing. Have a source behind us if we're going to talk passionately about it, right? But also, if I get something wrong, I want you guys to reach out. And I've had people in the last few weeks. I've gotten a few things wrong and said something, and you guys have corrected me, and I've given credit to it on the next episode. Made that correction because that's just better information. It's better fuel for all of us, right? So that's we kind of live and die by that motto, is that we don't take anything super seriously here, and you should be double checking. Like, we all should be double checking the information that we're allowing to go into our heads. We did not evolve to have this kind of information. This happened within generations. I mean, I remember I'm a millennial, and I remember I was born in the year 1990, and basically we were the first generation as kids to really deal with the internet. and we blew it up. Us and Generation X, we blew the internet up and showed the different ways that it could be applied, and then it got popular. Then money got put behind it, and it started to grow tremendously, right? To the point where we have now. We have the Facebooks, the Twitters, the TikToks, the Instagrams. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can get information. But we never evolved a way to deal with that and to filter through that. The only approach that I've seen that can actually be applied is this scientific method. And the first behavior that you really got to work on to develop, and look, I have to sometimes pull myself away from this too, because it's very easy to do in today's world, is to not take everything that you see in a headline as seriously as we all seem to be taking it. If I see a headline and I have that feeling, right? I have that feeling that I'm about to have an emotional response to this. I say to myself, okay, where does this lie? Where does this lie on that ladder? Hypothesis, theory, law. Where is it? And if I don't know right off the bat, right, I will click that article. That's the first thing. Just click the article. First step. I know I tangent here, but the first step for this is to click the article, scroll, and look for a source. If that article doesn't have a source to what they're talking about, and they're not pointing you to another link that's the actual thing, especially science stuff, right? Especially stuff with coronavirus. You know, all the stuff that's out there that says something, but then doesn't have any kind of link to research, to the people that have trained their whole life and spend their entire day, their entire work day, working on these diseases and working on ways to differentiate cures and ways to distract it. If there's no source, that doesn't even make it. It's not even an option, as George Carlin would say. Don't even pay it any mind. Toss it to the side. Your brain is worth way more than that piece of crap information. So don't take it seriously. That's first one. Now, if we start getting into the realm of, okay, if I have two things that have source information, then you've got to go and do a little bit of research. I'm sorry, but that's what we all have to do. We all have to be our own researchers. We all have to dig in and try and figure this out and use people that are actual experts in a field. I mean, that should go without saying, and it's not just the science field. You know, there's so many times where a headline will be written in a certain way, whether it's on the right or the left, or whatever, you know, side you decide to take. We shouldn't be taking sides in the first place. But whatever it is, if they're not an expert in that, then we shouldn't be taking that very seriously. Yeah, they have all the right to their opinion. They have all the right to share that information. But we should also do ourselves a favor and not take that seriously. Again, put it on the ladder. Where does it go? If it's just someone's thought and it's just an idea, it's the bottom rung. And it's correlatable with how seriously you should take it. How many times it's been seen to reflect reality should also correlate with how much that you take it seriously. So if it's just an idea that's being put out there and there's no source, cut it out. The next step is if it's something that's highly contested and kind of two sides seem to have an idea on it, which of course that's how we all are. We're binary, right or left, good or bad, whatever it is. Then you have to look at both sides. It's the only way to dig through in the world that we have. And that's very similar to the way that experiments are run and tested to get from a hypothesis to a theory, right? And how a theory really gets tested and seen as, you know, so for instance, string theory. Great theory, but really hypothesis. And I know I use this every time we talk about this. I use the string theory example, but I love string theory. I think it's amazing to think about these strands of the universe and multiverse and the different ways that reality is built around us and in all the different ways that we can't even see or use our own senses to get a glimpse of what it really is, right? That's great, but we can't test it with anything, right? We can't test it, so it you know, it's fun, but it's like second rung, like maybe even. It's very low on the ladder. Fun idea, but low on the ladder of seriousness. But something that's highly contested, you got to look at both sides. It's the same thing as the peer review process, right? when someone goes to prove out or to disprove it and have good backing, they will do the same experiment and try and get the same results. And really what they're looking for the results to not show. They're looking for the results to go the other way. But if they're a good scientist, and if they're trying to really find reality and not just have circular logic and find themselves in a basically appeasing what they think reality should be, if you're a good scientist, you will go through that. And if the data shows up wrong, or the data shows up that you were wrong, then you either restart the experiment and start looking again, or you decide that, hey, you know what? They might be right. And that's a very difficult thing for all of us to do right now. But I'm interested to hear from you guys what you guys think. If this is useful, if you've seen yourself doing this recently, especially, I definitely want to know if you find yourself on the edge of what's next. What are we gonna do next? Because things in life and things in just the way that, like the fact that we have to sit down and talk about how to not get crappy information into our own heads, we're at a serious dilemma. On top of the fact that there is a pandemic that is not still holding us back from going back to what the world used to be before. And I don't know about you. I mean, there's division in places that you would never expect people to divide on. Ideas that you never thought people would pick a side on. And it's like we're doing it and we can't help ourselves. So I want to know, are you guys on the edge of just saying, what are we going to do next? And if you have any ideas, obviously share them. We'd love to hear from you. Today in Space Podcast on Facebook, Today in Space Pod on Instagram and Twitter, and Today in Space on TikTok. And if you're hurting and you need someone to talk to, reach out. We're here. If you need another person to tell you that you're not going crazy, if you seem to be the only one who sees things a certain way, especially the mask situation is just insane, but the fact that became a divisive issue. I hope you're well. I hope you have a good week. We will get through this chaos, and I think we have a strong foundation in logic and in this scientific mindset, and I've seen it work in my own life. I think it can help other people. And that's where we're at. Live long and prosper. We'll see you next time for another episode of Today in Space.